everything that I read so far in 2024. Plus, I read a lot of books when we were on holiday this past month. Today is February, like the middle of February, but I have a list of books that I have already read since the year started. And I actually just finished a new book last night, so I've added it to my list. The first one that I finished was House of Sky and Breath from the Crescent City series, which is book number 2. I honestly preferred, well, I enjoyed the first book a little bit more in the series just because I felt like there was a lot more things that were new, like different creatures and characters, which was what was my favourite part about the book. But House of Sky and Breath was a nice way to lead into the third book, which is the whole reason that I was rushing through this series from December until January. And I finished this like on the first day of the new year, I think, so this is what I started my year with. She's a thick girl, and I actually have these animal covers, which I prefer to the people cover that has just come out. So I think there are a total of 3 covers now for this series. I think Crescent City is currently my favourite series from Sarah J Maas overall. I have read Ekota and TOG, but I think that you don't have to read those 2 series to read this book. But I felt that reading them helped me to appreciate a lot of things in the third book much better. And obviously the little cliffhanger at the end of book 2, if you know it, it wouldn't be much of a cliffhanger if you haven't really read A Court of Thorns and Roses. So I would recommend reading that, and I gave this book 5 stars. We went to New Zealand in January, so it was the perfect time for me to read on the flight, just sit around and read. And the first book, and the only book really that I carried with me and finished, was Hot Milk by Deborah Levy. I picked it because of the cover. I really liked that it was set in a Spanish beachside town. I read a snippet of the first page and how she dropped her laptop on the beach, and I was like, okay, I'm sold. And I also just really like the phrase hot milk. I just think hot milk is a very comforting thing to have, and this book was actually a lot more about her relationship with her mom and how she sort of discovers herself and breaks free from being tethered to her mother. And it was set in such a interesting sweaty landscape, and I could just feel the sweat on my skin and the sun burning it out on the beach as I read this. So I really enjoyed that, and the book is also pretty easy to carry around, so this was a very good book to bring on holiday. I gave this one, let me check, 4 stars. The next book I read when we were on holiday, I actually don't have it because I picked it up at our Airbnb in Queenstown. We had just done a really long hike the day before, and I had not wanted to do anything at all that afternoon, so we cooked our lunch, and then I saw a book sitting underneath the TV, and it was Fool Me Once by Harlan Cohen, which is a thriller about an ex-military wife whose husband is mysteriously shot, and they're trying to figure out like who killed him, and she's assisting the detective with this case, but of course the plot twist is revealed when you figure out who is the killer. I read the book in one sitting in one afternoon. It took me like maybe 4 hours, and this was a situation where I enjoyed the journey more than the destination. I felt that the book's build-up was really good, but when it came to the big reveal, it was a bit of a disappointment, and that also came through in the Netflix series, which we started watching that same night because we had to. I just thought that they changed a few too many things in the book. It became really draggy in the series, and even though I didn't really enjoy the outcome of the book, at least it was a very focused sort of story, and I didn't really like how the Netflix series played out. I did enjoy the process of reading it, and I did feel like I had a lot to say about the outcome after that, so having something to talk about is always a good thing. So I gave it 3 stars, and I think it's worth a read if you have nothing else to do, but I'm pretty sure there are better thrillers out there. No offense to anybody who actually enjoyed reading that book. After I finished reading Fool Me Once, I needed a new book, so I started reading Do I Know You, which is co-authored by Emily Wibberley and Austin Siegmund Broca. I really enjoyed their previous book together, which was The Roughest Draft, so I thought I would enjoy this one. This one is about a married couple who go away on a retreat or a holiday together at a resort, and they decide to pretend to be other people to try to like rekindle their romance. And it was a very interesting premise. I enjoyed, again, the journey of reading this. I think it was a nice, very wholesome ending, but I didn't really agree with some of the things that, you know, they chose to do as a result of learning from this journey that they went on together. So as a married person, I think it was still a tad idealistic, and I would prefer something that's a little bit more real, which it was at the beginning in terms of their problems and stuff. At the end of the day, it's still just a book. I gave this 3 stars, I think, maybe 3.5, because I really did enjoy it. And I expected a little bit more of a twist with all the other characters that were introduced, but it's still a pretty fun, easy read for a holiday. I think I finished this as well within like 1 to 2 days. I was reading this out loud in the car when we had a really long drive. I think we had an 8-hour drive day. I got a lot of reading done just by reading it out loud to keep myself and my husband awake while we were driving. So you can try that when you read this book. So those were all the books that I read in January. Moving on to February, which I know it's only in the middle of the month, but these are the books that I finished so far. House of Flame and Shadow. It came out on the 30th, I think, of January, and we were still overseas. So we went into every bookstore and I stood around like, oh, should I get it? And then this girl walked past and she was like, I understand. And of course, I bought it on holiday. And I started reading it on this trip, and I was reading it on the plane, and when we got home, I finished it. So, I mean, I didn't finish it during this trip, but eventually I finished it when we got home. I love this very, very much. Definitely a 5-star read, and I think if you're a fan of the whole Massobeats in general, this really tied things together. There's so many fan theories online right now that I can't even go into it, but I think my favorite reveal was the biggest, like, no spoilers, but the biggest like TOG descendant in the book. I really enjoyed that, and I found that I actually enjoyed the TOG references a lot more than the Akuta references, which is a surprise because Akuta was actually my first favorite series from this author. So I don't think I need to say much, but if you're not into Crescent City yet and you're looking for a nice fantasy read, I think it's definitely worth the hype. Yeah, so 5 stars! A contemporary fiction that I've had on my shelf for a while, and I decided that it was time to quickly pick it up and just read it. This is Woman Eating by Claire Coda. It's actually a modern day vampire story about a woman who eats blood to survive, but of course that's difficult. So I kept thinking of Santa Clarita Diet the whole time I was reading this. It's pretty funny, but actually the deeper message here is about her roots and how she finds herself. Again, there are some mummy issues in this book, but also about self-identity with race, with being like an outsider. I would recommend this book. Again, just like Hot Milk, it's not gonna live rent-free in my head for long, so I did give it 4 stars, but I really enjoyed this. And if you're someone who is like me and coming from a very like, you know, chick lit background, moving into fantasy, and you're still trying to like get different genres of books to read, these two are very thin and easy reads that are light enough that you won't feel like it's so difficult. So these were my first forays into contemporary fiction apart from My Year of Rest and Relaxation, and I recommend both of them if you're starting out. And the last book that I read so far in the month of February, I actually finished just last night, and it is One Day by David Nichols. I grabbed this at random when we were at the bookstore last weekend, and then when I got home, literally the next day, Netflix was buzzing with the release of the limited series, and I was like, I didn't even know that firstly this was a movie a long time ago. I didn't know that it was a series that was coming out, and I definitely had to finish reading this book. So I put aside all the other books I planned to read. I was actually reading something else on my Kindle. I put that aside to finish this, and I finished it I think in a couple, maybe 2 to 3 days or over the course of this week. This book is beautiful, it's so well written. It's basically about 2 best friends and their 20 years of friendship. A little bit will they, won't they, but such a very wholesome manner. Like, you don't have any kind of smut in this book whatsoever. It's very classy and very tastefully written, and I really enjoyed and am very impressed at how the author managed to so realistically write 20 years of history into existence, despite probably not living out these people's 20 years of their lives himself. And the ending though, I did not see that coming. I didn't see the twist at the end. It kind of left me feeling really sad. but it was a really heartwarming read and he still managed to pull it through together with some warmth at the end. My favourite chapters of this book were their first holiday together in Greece as well as their last first holiday together in Paris. If you read this, you kind of know what I'm talking about, but I just really enjoyed the moments that the two characters were together. So tonight we're gonna start watching the series for sure, and I'm a bit scared because I don't know how it's gonna live up, but I don't really have a lot of expectations. So yeah, I highly recommend this book and I gave it 5 stars. So those are all the books that I've read since the year started, and you can see from the shelf that these are all books that I have yet to read and I have been meaning to read, and there's a really long list. Currently reading this book that my husband recommended, which is the Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone. I think the sequel is out already. He spent a really long time hunting for this OG prequel to the sequel, the first book in the series. So far I'm not very impressed. I think like he kind of oversold it a little bit. It's not my kind of thriller, murder mystery rather, but I'm gonna give it a try. I am currently 38 pages in, so I'll probably finish this over this week and then we'll talk about it in the next video. So, happy Saturday, I'm off to go and do my thing. If you have any other book recommendations, let me know. See you next time. Bye!